welcome to a cover story conversation. I have with me Manish Tewari. He's a Congress three-time MP, former union minister, a geopolitical expert, and an author. In fact, Manish, your latest book, A World Adrift, I mean, the title could not have been more apt, considering we're having, in the middle of the times we live in. It's been 26 days since the Iran-Israel war. And it doesn't seem to be abating. In fact, all signs are there that there will be an escalation over the weekend. What is your first take on this situation, Manish?
Well, first of all, I seem to have a direct line to all those people who create trouble in this world. So that
Correct.
accounts for the title of the book.
And
Uh,
the timing when the book came out, I remember everybody was wondering whether you had a hotline with Trump.
but it's unfortunate what is taking place in the larger Middle East. However, we need to understand that there is not one war. There are multiple wars being fought simultaneously at the same time. First and foremost, of course, is the Israeli Iranian conflict, which had led to an earlier bombing on the 22nd of June last year, with the United States front ending that entire process. But then there is also the struggle between the Sunni Arab states and the Shia states, which is a theological struggle translated into Westphalian reality, which now has been going on in the greater Middle East for millennia. The third, of course, is America's attempt to kneecap its foremost strategic rival, China. And that's why the moves on Venezuela and the subsequent move on Iran. So, therefore, there is an attempt which is being made to really reorder the geopolitical context of the world. So, therefore, anyone who sees the Israel US Iran conflict as something confined to defanging Iran of its nuclear weapon and missile launch capability is seeing a binary, which is an erroneous read of the situation. You see, if you look at it in a wider context, Venezuela was providing uh, cheap crude oil, almost a $15 discount on the Brent, lithium and rare earth minerals to China. Iran again was providing crude oil to China at again about $10 to $12 discount on the Brent. In fact, the only ships that are transiting the Straits of Hormuz are the IGRC ships, which are going to China. The rest of them, if you go by what is there in the open source domain, have to pay a toll of almost ranging between $2 million to $4 million per tanker, which is transitioning. Now, I do not know how far is this correct, but it is very widely there on the on public sources, and apparently the money has to be paid in yuan. So, therefore, there are different dynamics at play. But unfortunately, the energy consuming nations of South Asia and East and North Asia are the worst hit by the closure of the Straits of Hormuz.
And how do you see, this, if you just take a look at what you said about the China-US equation, that's really the larger war that is being fought in the background. The way China has positioned itself, it hasn't really come out, and joined the war actively, though it is supporting Iran. How are you seeing to the way China is playing the game?
Well, the Chinese have always played the long game, and
Hmm.
therefore, that is the biggest strategic stake, which the United States war planners really have. So, if this conflict was to play out according to the US playbook, essentially, after you have defanged both Venezuela and Iran, and then if you give Russia an off ramp,
Hmm.
which the Ukrainians are also very petrified about, essentially either through the Arctic route or with the Central Europeans demanding that the damaged gas pipelines be repaired, the Druzhba pipeline. Hungary has been demanding that. Slovakia and other Central European powers have been demanding that. Sooner there would be a greater clamor among even the West European powers as energy supplies get more and more constrained. And if Russia gets that off ramp, then the US would be able to negotiate with China on its own terms, which essentially then means that BRICS has been rendered as a non entity. So, therefore, there are many moving pieces of the US play in the Middle East, and it is not confined to defang, as I earlier said, to undercutting or subverting or defanging Iran's missile and nuclear capability.
You also spoke about the Shia-Sunni conflict that is also being played out in this, war. How do you see the way the Sunni Arab Gulf states are? Some of them we are told have told U.S. that cut the head off the snake, or do you think that they would want the war has gone on for too long? It is hitting the economy. Would they want the war to end? How are you seeing their response?
Well, Iran has a lot of resilience, and its ability to take punishment is of a different order altogether. And Iran, even in demographic terms, is the largest state in the Middle East. So, therefore, Iran is 95 million, and the GCC countries combined are at 32 million. In fact, the whole Gulf Cooperation Council construct, which was put together in 1981, was also a reaction to the Iranian Revolution in 1979. And 1979 was a very seminal year in the larger Middle East, or what we call West Asia. So you had the Russian or the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. You had the takeover of Mecca by Islamic extremists or militants. And then you had the Iranian Revolution in 1979. And then Pakistan also, under Ziaul Haq, decided to go the Sharia way. So, therefore, under those circumstances, there are contradictions within the GCC. While some of the larger states are pushing to see that this conflict is taken to its logical conclusion, others actually want to pull back because their economies are being badly hurt. Going by what is available in the public space, Qatar seems to have suffered a huge hit insofar as its LNG refining complexes are concerned. Reports suggest that almost 17% of the LNG, which used to come into the global market from Qatar, is now off the charts. So, under those circumstances, there are, as I earlier said, lots of moving pieces, and there is nothing. There's no cohesive response to from even the anti-Iran forces in the greater Middle East. In fact, ironically, if at all there is a Shia crescent that came into existence as a consequence of the US invasion of Iraq. In fact, the single greatest beneficiary in regional terms of the US invasion of Iraq was Iran, which was able to consolidate power across the greater Middle East through its proxies, through what is colloquially called the Shia crescent, without even firing a single shot.
So at the end of it, Manish, where do you see it going? Because as we are talking, when we're having this conversation, we are nearing the end of Trump's 5-day offer for a pause. Now it does seem as if the war is going to escalate. He's actually going to send troops on the ground. It's going to be a bloody weekend ahead of us. But how do you think is Iran equipped to handle it? Because Iran has shown a lot of resilience and a lot of strength, but does it have enough manpower, enough ammunition to take on the boots on the ground?
Well, therein lies the strategic paradox. Because if you go by reports which tend to confirm that Iran has a standing military force of over 600,000 people. And then it's got millions of people as reservists. So, under those circumstances, even though they may have taken a huge pounding as a consequence of this 25-day bombardment, which, going by what the United States and its allies put out, has severely degraded Iran's military capability. But the fact remains that they continue to launch missiles, and there has been damage even now in the states around Iran, and of course, Israel has also taken a couple of hard knocks. So, under a standing army and millions of reservists, to send 2,000 or 4,000 Marines, it really does not make any tactical sense. So I don't know as to whether those people who decided to start this war had actually thought through it, because, again, going by reports which are available, 2 days before the Israeli US bombardment of Iran actually started, there was a very constructive and positive dialogue between Witkoff and Kushner and the Iranian foreign minister in Geneva. And then 48 hours later, you had this sudden bombing, or this commencement of this campaign, which obviously means that while there was one track which was running through to Iran, there was another track between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, who were on an absolutely different trajectory and tangent altogether. And you see, this is where even the Islamic states of the Middle East need to reflect that the US has 19 military relationships, including bases in the greater Middle East. 18 of them are with Islamic states. And there is only one relationship with Israel. But Israel has effectively been running the US Middle East policy now going back to 1948. So the heavy hitters in West Asia, or the greater Middle East, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Egypt, and there are lots of heavy hitters who have a great relationship with the United States. They need to actually really think as to why their collective heft is not able to influence US policy when it comes to the Middle East.
You really unpacked a lot of comments in that one, Manish, a lot of thoughts over there, because that is what everybody is wondering. One, why did Trump, we know what Israel is getting out of this. What is Trump getting out of it? Is it just dominance of oil, or is it something more? B, what about the other, Arab Gulf nations, as you pointed out? Why haven't they been able to influence Trump? And who can be the mediator? As we talk, there is also talk of some sort of mediation happening in Pakistan. There's a lot of heartburn in India as to why is it happening in Pakistan. So something on that also I would like to hear from you. And do you expect that to succeed, or is it just a distraction?
Look, insofar as the United States is concerned, they have almost obtained self-sufficiency when it comes to hydrocarbons. In fact, the US import of oil from the Middle East is down to, I think, 8 or 9%. A bulk of their imports actually are from Canada and other South American states. And then, of course, after shale oil and shale gas was discovered, the United States is largely non-dependent upon the greater Middle East. And this is a transition which has happened in the past 10 years, which is why you need to really understand that the US has far more flexibility to do what it wants without really hurting its economy exponentially back home. Of course, prices at the pump have risen in the United States also. But even if the Hormuz was to remain closed for the next foreseeable future, even for 180 days or more, the United States is going to be minimally impacted. That's number one. Number two, West Asia, or the conflict in West Asia or the greater Middle East, has raised certain very, very profound questions insofar as Indian diplomacy is also concerned. Uh, India has largely chosen to remain silent. primarily because we have a large diaspora, almost 10 million people across the region, and countries of the region are now engaged in adversarial conflict with each other. But should India accept the principle of regime change by coercion? That's a fundamental question, since we have foreign policy traditions which go back to even our pre-independence day. The second question is, should India not have condemned the targeted assassination of the supreme leader of Iran, as also the strike which killed 196 people, or 196 innocent children, which the New York Times says was a Tomahawk missile which originated from one of the United States delivery platforms. They, we have condemned the destruction of energy infrastructure in the greater Middle East. We've also condoled the deaths which have occurred as a consequence of Iran's egregious actions. But there is a need to be even-handed. The third larger question that it raises is that does strategic autonomy actually mean keeping silent when your vital energy interests are at stake? 40% of our crude oil and a larger amount of LNG, and we import almost 60% of our LPG, transit through the Straits of Hormuz. And Hormuz is effectively closed. So, therefore, there are certain stances which go not to the moral principle, but to the fundamentals of India's foreign policy, that we have tried to be as even handed as possible over the past so many decades. In addition to that, we also hold the chair of the BRICS at this point in time. So, this silence is really disturbing, and something which needs to be fundamentally thought about by not only people in government, but those who have an interest in India's strategic trajectory.
I'm going to hold you to that thought. After a quick break, I'm going to come back and then talk about the politics of the silence that is breaking out between the opposition and the government. So stay with us. Hello and welcome back to a cover story conversation. I have with me Congress MP and former Union Minister Manish Tewari, and we're talking about the Iran-Israel war, US also conflict. Manish, there has been politics has broken out back home on India's reaction, and as you said that we should have reacted when the attack took place and the leader was killed in Iran. But more than that. How do you see this playing out? Because the government is saying, look, there are geopolitical constraints at stake. In the past, also when there was the invasion in Afghanistan, we did not react. So there is seems to be they are saying that we are weighing every option and we can't just react to without taking the long term implications in mind.
Well, this is not correct. In fact, India had reacted to the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. Both Prime Minister Charan Singh's government, which was an interim government, which was followed by Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's government, because elections took place in 1980, and in the December of 1979, the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan had taken place. So it is absolutely incorrect to say that India had not reacted on Afghanistan. In fact, both the governments had reacted. The Prime Minister Indira Gandhi had told the then foreign minister of the Soviet Union, if I remember the name correctly, it was Andrei Gromyko, that what has happened in Afghanistan is completely incorrect. So therefore, one should not be glib in trying to cover, if I may say, one's own inaction or lack of action by pointing to the past. We were very, very proactive when it came to the conflict between the United States and Korea. Even on Vietnam, yes, there is criticism that we did not react all that strongly when Soviet tanks rolled into Budapest in 1956 or in Slovakia in 67. But you must recall by that point in time, Pakistan had already gone and joined the Southeast Asian Treaty Organization and the Central Treaty Organization, which is called the Baghdad Pact. So, therefore, India's own national security imperatives were also at play at that point in time. So this constant finger pointing to the past to justify or attempt to justify your present action or lack of it is clearly imbecile and childish, if I can put it in those words.
And what about the fact that Pakistan has been, chosen as the place, the venue for mediation, and not India?
Well, Hillary Clinton, once on a visit to Islamabad, had very, very presciently remarked that those who rear snakes in their backyard should be very careful that one day they'll come back to bite them. And the United States does not learn from its own history. The Pakistanis played an extremely duplicitous role during the first Afghan jihad from 1980 to 1989. In fact, when the United States pulled out after the Soviets retreated over the Amu Darya from 90 to 96, Pakistan was up to all kinds of very mischievous games in Afghanistan. And when the US came back in, Pakistan again played them. In fact, they sheltered Osama bin Laden for almost maybe a decade or more, who was the most wanted person from the American point of view. So the Americans, unfortunately, don't seem to learn from their experience. And if I can remember from the top of my head, the former Director General of the Pakistan Inter-Service Intelligence Agency, Gul Hamid, had said that we used America to defeat America. So all those who are now trying to use Pakistan as an interlocutor need to be extremely careful. See what is happening between Pakistan and Afghanistan. These guys wanted strategic depth going all the way back to 1971 after we created East Pakistan in Afghanistan. And today, the Afghans have realized as to how untrustworthy and completely duplicitous a neighbor Pakistan can be. And there was almost a full-fledged battle going on between them. So Pakistan is strategically and even politically unreliable. The United States does not seem to learn from its own experiences, and that is a tragedy.
What about Iran's equation with Pakistan? There are, I believe, 30% Shia Muslims in Pakistan also. So would Pakistan be Iran's choice?
Well, in 2023, if I remember correctly, Iran and Pakistan had also exchanged missiles. So therefore, Pakistan doesn't only have a problem with India. Pakistan has a problem with Afghanistan. Pakistan has a problem with Iran. I think they went around exchanging missiles with each other. Some people were killed till the time Qatar and Turkey intervened in order to cool things down. So therefore, maybe the general self-promoted Field Marshal Asim Munir may be trying to play a role. But if at all Pakistan is being used, and I do not know because ultimately these are all reports which are circulating around in the media, but if Pakistan is being used, this means that the United States is desperate for an off-ramp.
But does it look like, I mean, it does seem as if Trump is looking for a way out because he seems to have bitten off more than he can chew. How do you see this ending really?
Well, it is not going to end. Now, even if the Americans and the Israelis were to stop bombing Iran, The fact that Iran took that punishment and survived and effectively closed off the Straits of Hormuz is a very big strategic lesson for the world. And therefore, Iran is only going to emerge more powerful, not only in the regional sense of the word, but it has also now understood that by closing the Straits of Hormuz, and there are about 3,000 ships idling in the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman, it can effectively hold the global economy to ransom. So that puts Iran in a very, very unique position. Having said that, it is not as if the regime in Iran is a paragon of virtue. I mean, they have been extremely repressive towards their own people. It's another matter that over a period of uh, five odd decades, they have developed an iron grip, an authoritarian grip on the system, which does not allow people in Iran to speak out. But when you are looking at it in geopolitical terms, you're looking at it in terms of hard power. You are not looking at the internal democratic dynamics, which of course do not exist in Iran. What you are really looking at is which is the regime and how best the regime is using asymmetrically or otherwise the hard power of the state, which it still has in its control, despite having been severely degraded by 25 days of continuous bombing. You know, Israel has complete air superiority. They can bomb any place at any point in time in Iran, but it also shows you the limits of aerial power. You cannot bring about regime change by bombing from the top.
Which makes me wonder what this weekend really has in store for us. But on that note, Manish, thank you so much for this conversation. And on one more quick last note, the Prime Minister spoke about COVID type situation coming up, and we must be ready to face that. How would you interpret that comment?
Well, essentially, what he's saying is that your energy supplies are strained. So, therefore, the government may try and hold the line till these assembly elections go through. But you will be facing a new economic reality on the 1st of May, 2026, as I had articulated in Parliament, because even if the war was to stop today, it would take 60 days or even more for confidence to return. You see, the ships are not transiting Hormuz because Iran is targeting them. The ships are not transiting Hormuz because there's no insurance. All insurance policies have been cancelled. There is no war premium. Ships move based upon insurance contracts, and those contracts are completely non-existent. And if the destruction of energy infrastructure in the Middle East is correct, in fact, the executive director of the International Energy Agency said that 40 major energy producing installations in the greater Middle East have suffered considerable damage. Then you're looking at crude 100 plus throughout 2027. So obviously that is going to strain your finances because for every $10 that the price of crude oil, and here I'm only talking about crude, I'm not talking about food, fertilizer, essential drugs, etc., etc. Every $10 the price goes up, it adds 10 to $15 billion to your import bill.
As you said, Manish, it certainly is a world adrift. We really don't know what we are getting into, and I'm going to keep coming back to you for more conversations. But for now, thank you so much for this. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the Newsx YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.